I am Darth Revan, and this is my review of The Mandalorian Chapter 16, The Rescue. The episode begins in space with a great shot of Slave 1 chasing down an Imperial shuttle. Inside, we see that there is now 3 people, 2 of which were nameless, and Dr. Pershing, the cloner from Season 1. Of course, with any Star Wars property, the Imperials are always assholes, so in this episode we are introduced to Pilot Asshole.
What's going on? Who are they?
I suggest you shut your mouth. This isn't your laboratory.
After a few minutes of playing with his prey, Boba Fett shoots the ship with his ion cannons, disabling all the weapons and communications, and then, in a big dig move, he does this. I do not care who you are, that was cool. After the attack, the ship's shields are lowered, and then the Mandalorian and Cara Dune enter. They ask for Dr. Pershing. When they are told no, a pilot jumps out and says, "I'm not with them." And then Pilot Asshole does this.
Okay, I'm not with him. We can work something.
What a way to go out, bud. Good job. So, the guy who says, "I am not with him," yeah, he was wearing his uniform. He was flying his ship, the same one as the Pilot Asshole, and he had spent God knows how long working for the Empire. He most definitely was on his side. Anywho, moving on. So, Captain Asshole, holding Dr. Pershing, starts to sign his own death warrant by bragging about being on the Death Star in front of Cara Dune when it destroyed Alderaan, her home planet. After a snippy word back and forth where when he says, "I was on the Death Star," and she says, "Which one?" he laughs and he starts making fun of it. Which, bud, this ain't gonna end well for you. He then proceeds to say, "I was on the Death Star. I saw your planet get destroyed." Cara Dune, then, after a few minutes later, does this.
Saying your planet was a small price to pay to rid the galaxy of terrorism.
Good job, dumbass. You played yourself. Meanwhile, on some random planet, we see Slave 1 landing, and Boba and the Mandalorian both walk into this bar. And there we see Bo-Katan and her friend having a drink, both of whom are night owls from Old Mandalore. Now, if you don't know what a night owl is, they're this order of the Night's Watch on Mandalore. Now, the Night's Watch is actually what the Mandalorian believes in, but he is a more extremist version of the Night's Watch. That is why in a previous episode she said this.
Children of the Watch are a cult of religious zealots that broke away from Mandalorian society. Their goal was to re-establish the ancient way.
So, in the bar, the Mandalorian and Boba Fett are trying to talk to her and getting them to basically track down the child with them. They're after enticing her into helping them because they have told her that they know the location of Moff Gideon, who she's after, because he has something that she wants. We'll get to that later on. Then they also told her that, hey, you can have his cruiser, which will help you take back Mandalore. But here's the problem, folks. Mandalore was glassed, so I do not know what state Mandalore actually is in. But we will see. So, Bo-Katan's friend and Boba are giving each other back and forth after Bo-Katan says to Boba, "I heard your voice thousands of times." They then proceed to get into a fight. Now, I have heard complaints. "Oh, the girl that flipped Boba." Well, watch this scene again. she didn't flip him. She kicked him in the stomach and she had to use her jetpack to stop him. Now, remember people, Boba is in his 50s. He has lived a very hard life. He was trapped, we don't know for how long, in a Sarlacc pit. And the only way that she got a chance of even knocking him over was basically kicking him in the stomach and using her jetpack. She didn't even win. She was stopped by Bo-Katan. No, this is not the almighty Whammon. This was simply a lucky shot. A while later, back on the Imperial shuttle, they are discussing their plan for taking Moff Gideon's light cruiser, and then we discover that the ship is operating with a mere fraction of what he used to back in the old Imperial days. And then we learn that their day is about to get a whole lot, well, worse, when we learn this.
Garrison of Dark Troopers on board. They're the ones who abducted the child.
We also learn this is the third, god damn you baby, that the third generation of Dark Troopers, and they are just droids at this stage, removing the human element from inside them, which was the last hurdle that they had to overcome. You see, they're in this cargo bay here that I'm showing on screen because they require so much energy to power them that it's just easier to store them like this. So, the Scooby crew comes up with a plan. The Mandalorian will go straight for the brig to save Grogu, while the ladies will go straight for the bridge to get Moff Gideon. So, they're then talking, and Karish says that she wants to arrest Moff Gideon, but Bo says, I don't care what you want, I just want him to surrender to me. I wonder why. You see, we will figure this out later. We then learn that the plan is to pretend that the Imperial shuttle is under an attack. Okay, that is a good plan. And this is where we get one of my favorite launches in all of The Mandalorian, where we learn how this light cruiser launches its TIE fighters. And I must say, whoever did this loves to play video games, because I could completely see this in Star Wars Squadrons. Followed a few minutes later by this great landing scene. Which I think is basically one of the best landing scenes in most of Star Wars. After this, we then get to see that the Dark Troopers are powering up, and apparently they are powered by Techno. After they disembark the shuttle, they proceed to fight their way through the ship and get to the bridge and the brig. And this is where they also answer a question that some fans have asked for a while about shields. Now, that stormtrooper is definitely going to know that he's going to die and there's nothing he can do about it. Afterwards, we see Mando prowling the ship as he ducks and dives to avoid the stormtroopers. That is when we learn that the Dark Troopers are finally ready. As Mando is then walking down the hall, we see a RA-7 protocol droid, first seen in Star Wars Rebels. We then cut over to the Scooby Squad, doing what they do best, wrecking shit, and making the Empire just have the worst day ever. When we then see that Kara's gun gets jammed. As with any good gun user, she decides to use tactical maintenance to reboot her gun. And this is what she does. After she gets her gun back in wrecking order, we then see the Dark Troopers. After that, we see Mando rushing the door to try to stop the Dark Troopers from getting out. He almost succeeds, except for this guy. After punching Mando halfway across the hole, the Mando discovers that all of his bullets are bouncing off the droid's exoskeleton. And that is when the droid does this. As Mando is getting his brains turned to mush, we then see that the other droids are trying their best to get their asses through the door. And finally, after a second, when Mando stops hearing colours and seeing sound, he then tries to burn the Dark Trooper, which seems to make the Dark Trooper even more mad. After he's thrown down the hole, he then proceeds to try to use all the weapons that he has to no avail. But after getting far enough away, that's when he shanks the droid through his head with his Beskar steel. So when the first droid is dead, he then blasts the other droids into space. Afterwards, we then cut over to the Scooby crew, and we see that Kara's gun is still jammed. And after a bit of tactical maintenance, well, we then get to see that Kara's gun, and thus the Scooby Gang, are back in wrecking order, and they swiftly begin giving the Empire the very worst day that the Empire has ever had on this ship. Take their way onto the bridge to proceed to swiftly and cleanly take it over. That is when Bo-Katan says, "Where is Moff Gideon?" And after that we cut over to Mando, who swiftly relieves two stormtroopers of the burden of living. That is when we see Moff Gideon standing over Grogu with the Darksaber in hand, and we see that Grogu has a pair of tiny little handcuffs. Now, this is where I have to ask the question. Did they just have a pair of tiny little handcuffs hanging around, or did they specially commission a pair of tiny little handcuffs? Because when they were doing this, do you not think that one of the stormtroopers would have turned around and said, "Hey guys, are we the bad guys?" Gideon then tells Mando to drop his blaster and slide it across the floor whilst he is holding the Darksaber. After they have a back and forth, we get this little bit of info.
She wants this. Do you know why? Because it brings power.
After he tells this to Mando, he then tells him to kick his gun over to him, and he says that he knows that he's traveling with Bo-Katan and to assume that he knows everything, and that, for example, his wrist launcher has fired the only one of its salvos that it carries. Then Mando replies, "Where is this going?" Gideon says he knows what has been going on, that the Scooby Gang has taken over the bridge, calling them savages. And he then states that whoever holds the Darksaber holds the throne of Mandalore. After that, Mando says, "You keep it." And that he just simply wants Grogu. Then Moff Gideon agrees. He lets them take little Grogu, and as soon as Mando touches Grogu, this happens. After the fight, we see that Moff Gideon has been disarmed, and he claims that this should be interesting. On the bridge, we see Bo-Katan staring out into space, when suddenly the door opens, and in struts Mando, with a very annoyed looking Moff Gideon in tow. This is where Bo-Katan says, "What happened?" At this point, Kara then walks over to Mando and says, "We brought him in alive, so now the Republic will have to double the bounty." Moff Gideon then snarlily says, "That is not what she's talking about. Why not just kill Mando now?" That is when we get this explanation.
Can't take it. It must be won in battle.
So, after Mando tries to yield, she cannot take it Because it's not the blade that holds the power, guys. No. It is the story that is behind the blade. And without it, why, she's just simply a pretender to the throne. And all of a sudden, the alarms start going off, and we learn that they're being boarded with no life signs. That's right, folks. The techno droids are back. We see it's not just one, it's all of them. And then Moff Gideon says, "You're going to deal with the Dark Troopers." How will they deal with a whole platoon when they had so much trouble with just a single droid earlier on? Then we see that the platoon is now making their way to the bridge. On the bridge, the Scooby Gang and Mando are scurrying about, getting themselves ready for war. After the Dark Troopers have secured the ship from the hangar all the way up to the bridge, the cargo bay and all, Mando puts Grogu in the safest spot as he can, and he says, "Grogu, I will get you out of here as soon as I can, kid." Fennec then orders that the blast doors are sealed, as we see that outside, half of the Dark Troopers have prepared themselves to become battering rams to burst through the doors. Gideon, with a smirk on his face, says, "You have an impressive fire team protecting you, but I think that everyone in this room, except me and the child, will be dead soon." The music is ramping up. Everyone is ready to die and fight to get out of there. And then we hear that there is just one X-Wing has arrived. And everyone who has ever seen Star Wars knows what one X-Wing means. That's right, Luke fucking Skywalker is back. We've waited for over 30 years to see him like this. Frankly, this is how Disney should have treated him from the beginning. Not to have how he was treated on set of The Last Jedi. This is how you know that it is made by someone who actually respects Star Wars. That we learn that Grogu will not be safe until he masters his abilities. So he must go with Master Skywalker. So basically, this is the last time that Grogu will be with the Mandalorian, his adoptive father, because at this point now, their paths must change and diverge. And as baby Grogu reaches his hand out to say goodbye, Mando, who has refused to take his helmet off since episode 1, except for 1 or 2 moments, finally in front of his son, does this. Master, going off to be the little Jedi that we know he can be. I would like to thank all of you for watching my review of the final of the season 3 of The Mandalorian. Just before you go, I would just like to say that seeing Luke Skywalker like this is a huge moment for the fandom and the community as a whole. With the treatment that we've been getting from Disney on high, from Kathleen Kennedy and her crew, it has felt that the old guard has been pushed aside. The old fans being able to watch Star Wars with your kid and both of you loving it has for a long time felt like it was gone out the window. Because of identity politics, Pablo Hidalgo, other people coming and hating and just railing against Star Wars fans. And then having Luke Skywalker brought back like this has brought a little spark of hope in these, to use a Star Wars quote, dark times for the fandom and the world. It meant a lot. When I saw Luke, I was thrilled when I saw him. I was immediately brought back to when I was a kid, when I saw Luke for the first time. At the end of this, Star Wars, for me, had returned. Fuck the sequel trilogy. This is Star Wars. Don't believe me? Just listen to some of my friends.
And I was kind of a loner. My brothers had to get me into certain groups of friends. But watching Star Wars and Luke Skywalker and just seeing the journey he went through, the mistakes he made, the trials and tribulations he went through as he was learning and growing. It was very inspiring. And when you see him in Return of the Jedi, and he defeats Vader, he defeats him, and then he realizes that he almost went to the dark side to defeat him, throwing his saber away and acknowledging that he is now, a Jedi. That was a very important moment for me. And seeing Luke throughout my childhood, whenever I watched the original trilogy, it always impacts me hard. Luke was always a character that I could relate to in regards to somebody who, they would make mistakes, they'd get beat down, but they never gave up. They never gave up. They always pushed forward. They'd get up, dust themselves off, and keep doing. He nearly loses his life in Cloud City. He gets up, keeps going forward. He never gave up. That's my Luke. That's what Luke means to me. Never give up. You push and push and push until you achieve victory until you achieve your goal.
Hello everyone, my name is NB Geek, and per the request of Darth Revan, I'm going to give a short video about the show The Mandalorian, Disney Plus, Season 2, Episode 8, The Rescue. In short, my reaction to the return of Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master. I'm not gonna lie, I would not let myself believe it. Even with the X-Wing, even with the fighting style, even with the hood, even with the green lightsaber. But when I saw the glove, it was like we knew it was Luke. I was so certain. And I just was lost in just such emotion on this. Seeing one of the heroes I grew up watching him go from farm boy to Jedi Knight to redeeming his father, making peace, and in a sense helping his father fulfill his chosen one role of taking out the Sith completely and bringing balance to the Force. Now we have here 4 or 5 years afterwards, and we have Luke Skywalker showing up, and he comes in, and it's just, he's fighting the way the style was very much reminiscent of what we were used to seeing. Just obviously much more advanced. He has obviously become much stronger in the Force than we saw him in Return of the Jedi. But his demeanor was very much the same, even wiser as a Jedi Master now. He doesn't tell him his name, he just answers his question, takes Grogu with him, and they go off together. And now for me, this was just wonderful, just a wonderful way to cap it off. Kind of a nice thank you to the fans for being a part of this experience. I don't feel it takes away anything from the scene with Din Djarin taking off his mask for Grogu to see him, because this is the first time he'd done it, and he had done his charge. He had to get Grogu to his kind, the Jedi. And he finally has completed that mission. And it was incredibly well done, I thought. Yes, there are flaws in every show. There's no way around it. But the introduction of Luke was just fantastic. And it really did fit well. And I think it gave us all, just for that small second, a little bit of a few minutes, that this was the Luke Skywalker we want to see. He didn't need a lot of lines. We wanted to see him visually be the Luke Skywalker we always imagined he was going to be. So with that being said, this was an awesome ending to a show. I look forward to seeing what Disney comes up with next with Star Wars. And not going to lie, I wouldn't mind seeing a little more Luke Skywalker in the future. Thank you all. This is MB Geek, and these are my thoughts.